Welcome to another tailgate where we talk about real issues in a real way so that you're able to have real results. I'm David Dom. I had a farmer once tell me, he said, David, if you farm long enough like me, you're going to have an issue. You're going to have a problem with seed. You're going to have a problem with chemicals. You're going to have a problem with something, machinery. You're going to have a problem. And so when I choose to decide who I'm going to work with, sometimes going through an issue helps me really become more loyal to that rep or that company. When you have a complaint or a service call, do you look at it in the manner that that farmer described to me? Do you look at it in a manner in regards to how can I work with this farmer in a way when we're done with this issue that he looks at me or she looks at me in a way with more respect? They gain more trust in me, and they ultimately say to themselves and other people that, you really need to work with that person because in the way that they helped me through this situation. In the restaurant business, they say that one of the ways to increase business is word of mouth. It's also one of the main reasons why many restaurants go bankrupt or lose their businesses because of word of mouth. It's the waiter or waitress that does a poor job, or the cooking staff who puts out bad meals, and they don't handle it in a way that the customer says, I'm coming back, right? And so what we want to provide you here today is a way for you to grow loyalty, grow trust, gain more recommendations from your customers through issues that you're going to have. It's that time of the year, isn't it? I mean, it's that time of the year where the products that we sold, the farmers expect them to grow. They also expect of some of the products that we provide, chemistry, they expect that to kill things. But sometimes the products that we sell don't grow like they should, or for whatever reason, or they don't kill things like we had hoped that they would. So there's going to be issues. There's going to be a lot of balls in the air, and sometimes when there's a lot of balls in the air, that's when we drop a few. So it's service call season. It's that time when we got to prepare our minds, we got to prepare our hearts, we got to prepare our skills in a way that we can embrace those calls that are going to come our way where the farmer is saying, this didn't work, or this didn't get done the way I wanted, right? I mean, can you think of a time recently where you had an experience from a product or a company or a service that you had purchased from, and it didn't work out like you wanted? And from the moment you made the first call to the end, it was absolutely horrible. I can think of a time, our satellite company. We were on hold for 45 minutes. We finally got in touch with somebody. We couldn't understand them. They couldn't help us. So we had to start the whole process over again. And then when we finally got somebody on the phone, it took a long time, and we thought we had it fixed. We hung up. And then the issue came back around again about an hour later. We had to go through the whole process again. But I also can share with you a recent situation where it was exactly opposite of what I just described. From the first call, it was that you actually talked to somebody. They said, David, we're so glad that you called us. That's what we're here for. I can totally understand why you would be frustrated. We're going to help you solve this. Could you help us gain some information so that we can do our part in getting this solved? I mean, that opening call just made me feel like, okay, we're going to get this fixed. The expertise that they provided, the follow-up that they provided was so well done. So we have an opportunity here to build loyalty. Now, what I'd like you to do is to grab a sheet of paper and a pen. And I'm going to provide you 6 steps here today. Steps in a process helps us remember, helps us remember how to do it, and when we miss a step, many times we catch ourselves. So I'm going to give you an acronym that's going to help you remain classy. It's going to help you remain classy in almost every circumstance when a service call, when your expertise, when your empathy is needed. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to spell that word, and we're going to spell it vertically. So I want you to start near the top of the page on your first line. I want you to write the letter C. Below that C, I want you to write the letter L. Below that, write the letter A. Below that, we're going to write the letter S. Now let's repeat that. Let's write another S below the first S. And then below the S, we're going to now finish it by adding a Y, and you've just spelled classy. That's what we want you to remain, classy. Let's go through each one of those steps. So the first C stands for staying calm. Stay calm. C-A-L-M. You know, it's so important. Seemingly, when you get a call, it seems like when those calls come in, it's like at the worst time, right? You think you're really busy, you got all these things going on, and then you get a call. And you can hear from the moment that you answer the phone, something's wrong. It might be somebody that is just really, really frustrated. They could be angry. They might be really quiet, but they're just silent because they don't know what to do. But you know there's something happening. And what we need you to do is to remain calm. Not your heartbeat getting up, not your face getting red, not your temper getting hot. I want you to look at that gauge on your pickup truck, and you know that when it gets too hot, we got to pull off. Something's wrong with the radiator. Something's wrong with the coolant. The truck isn't going to function well. You can't function well if you're not calm. You need to remain calm. Whatever you need to do for you to remain calm, do it. For me, it's listening. For me, it's even telling myself, this is a moment in time, I've got to stay calm. I tell myself that. Okay? It's not a personal attack. It's an opportunity for you to help someone. Now, the L stands for listen. Oh, is that important? Put a star by that. And listening, think about the listening techniques that we can use so that we can tell ourselves and tell the customer that we want to listen. Now you can say, I'm so glad that you called me. Would you describe what you're dealing with? Notice these are words that I've just come up with. Make them yours. But I use words like, I'm so glad that you called. I'm going to grab a sheet of paper and take a few notes. Could I do that? If you're driving, I'm so glad that you called me. I'm about 3 minutes from better reception. I want to pull over then so that I can give you my undivided attention. Imagine what that other person feels like when they hear you say that. We've got to become great listeners. The A stands for acknowledge. ACKNOWLEDGE. Acknowledge the problem. Now, how do you do that? One of the steps that you can use and certainly make it yours is to repeat what you heard. So if I heard you right, Tom, you planted this corn on May 1st. It's now the 14th of May, and what you're seeing is you're seeing really uneven emergence. You're seeing stand counts that vary anywhere between as low as 14,000 under your planted population to as high as you're only about 3,000 off of where you dropped. Is that right? If I heard you right, Sam, you said that you sprayed this, the wind speed was about 10 miles an hour. You had just come from Grandma's 80 and everything looks good there, but now you're seeing the outer borders, you're seeing some cupping. Am I hearing you right? This is when we repeat, we acknowledge the issue. It sounds like you have a real challenge here. I'm so glad that you called me. Can I ask you some questions? So the first S, where we're going to call it start digging for facts. So go ahead and write those words. Start digging for facts. And one of the easiest ways to start digging for facts is to ask that famous line now, can I ask you some questions? It's a great transition from listening to acknowledging the problem to now I need to learn more. Can I ask you a few questions? The farmer's going to say what? Well, yeah, of course. Now, what type of questions should we be asking? Well, we're going to ask a lot of situation and problem questions. You remember in spin, we're going to ask a lot of situational questions. We're going to become a private investigator. Now, we got to ask questions agronomically like, when did you first notice the problem? When was it planted? How deep was it planted? Have you noticed this issue in any other fields? Has this ever happened to you before? What did you learn from that? What other products did you have in the tank? Were you using a starter fertilizer? Okay, so this is when we become agronomically more sound. We got to understand a lot of key information. Okay, you generally can't ask too many questions here. We got to find out a lot of things. I got to tell you a story. When I was in the seed business, I would have some customers that would call and they would say things like, my corn's dying. And when I was first starting in this business, I didn't have a process, and so my first thing is, well, I'll kind of drop everything. I'll be out there by 1:00, and I'd get out there. Well, the corn wasn't dying. I mean, what he described was different than what I saw it. I mean, he had maybe a lack of stand, but sometimes we got to ask a few more questions so that we can understand what that farmer's dealing with, and so we can become more accurate in terms of what our potential next steps are. Okay? We got to do a really good job of asking questions, taking notes during this time. Now, when you're taking notes, we want to put the farmer's name, we want to put the date that we're talking, we want to list that information, and we want to keep that information with us at all times. Okay? Now let's look at the second S. The second S is offering a solution. Now there's the S, solution, but we have to offer a solution or next steps. Now that can sound like, based on what you described to me, here's what are possible things that we might be dealing with. We can do that over the phone. It might be that our next step is, based on what you told me, I think I need to come out and see this. And would you be available around 4:00 today? That's offering a solution, right? It's a next step. It might be when we've seen the issue, we might want to bring options based on what we've planted it at 36,000, and based on the overall average of a stand here at 26,000. One of our options would be to tear it up and start again. Based on the planting date, this would be our expected yield potential. Or based on our planting date, based on when we can get it in the ground now with no guarantee that we're going to get 36,000 up, one of our options would be to leave it. This is the part where you can bring options. Now, a rule of thumb is if you're the only person that describes what should happen, can you get blamed in the end? Absolutely you can. So a watch out based on your expertise, based on the situation, is bringing options to the farmer is generally a better way to handle it. And then asking a needs payoff question. What advantages would you see by keeping the stand? What advantages would you see by tearing it up? If you had to make a call right now, what would you want to do, Mr. Farmer? There are some cases when they are looking at you and saying, I don't know what to do. And you can say, well, here's our options. And you can ask, would you like my opinion? Well, yes, I would. There are no guarantees other than, this is where you can fill that in. But we have to provide solutions. Those solutions always need to be based on your expertise, based on limitations of warranty, based on labels, based on your company policy. And you should always check those things before you make any what I would call product recommendations. You should always look at those things before we make any quote unquote promises. Why? Never overpromise and underdeliver. And so your solution, you may want to run it past a manager, someone in your company, so that you can gain their wisdom as well. So let's do a quick review. We started with staying calm, so important. Next thing we always want to do is be a great listener. We want to acknowledge the problem or the issue. We want to start digging for facts, and when possible, always offer a next step or solutions. Well, this leaves us with one letter, and that's the Y, and that's you, Y-O-U, Y-O-U, you follow up. There's one thing that you can always guarantee in this process, and that's your ability to follow up. It's your ability to keep your say-to-do ratio always really high. What I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do. I'm going to get back with you tonight after I check a few things. Could I give you a call? Could I text you? Now that I've seen this issue, I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to do a little work. Can I call you and let you know what I've seen? It might be, I'm going to look at this field 3 times over the next 2 weeks. Your follow-up is always going to be different based on the circumstances, but it's one of the most important steps. We must always be following up. Now, can you imagine always handling all your service call issues in this way? And when we don't miss steps, and when we hit the steps, you're always going to remain classy. You're always going to remain classy. Were you aware that it cost a company and you 7 times more in the amount of money, the amount of time, the amount of effort in gaining a new customer than keeping one? I hope that today, that going through how to do a service call has helped you stay classy and will help you stay classy as you go about making those service calls this spring. It's always great to sit on the tailgate with you where we talk about real life, real issues, giving you real advice to help you have real results. This has been David Dahm with All Terrain. Good selling.